A lot of times they have a condition that shows up in the afternoon. It's called sundowning, where they just acutely and abruptly become confused. They don't recognize you, they don't recognize their surroundings. So it is very important to get them to where they're going before that happens.
Welcome to the Duet NEMT Growth Podcast. I'm really excited to have Jeanine here. Jeanine has worked with Duet for a long time. I know her personally. You know, she was critiquing my driving last time we were at like NEMT driving around. She is she's the expert on long distance medical transport. She's done like multi-day long ground trips, things where you go ground to air to ground. Just sort of this really fascinating part of NEMT that's very difficult and maybe scary to get into, but can be really, really lucrative. Hence the sort of $20,000 NEMT trip name here. And Jeanine, I'm really excited to have you on, and excited to sort of learn how it's all done here.
Well, yes, it can be lucrative if you do it right. If you do it wrong, it may not be. So that's why it's very important to try to get it right. And if you don't know what you're doing, to maybe shadow other people, do a workshop, ask other people. But yes, it can be very rewarding. I am a nurse, and so for me, I just always wanted to make sure that people are traveling the best route that their condition warrants. And so with ground transportation, you just want to make sure that you are adequately prepared. So there's preparation that you do before, during, and even after. So just come aboard and we'll walk you through it.
Yeah. So one thing that made me want to have you on our podcast was that, in the context of my work at Duet, where we're doing dispatching software, growth services, etc., I'm often talking to people who mention they want to get into long distance transport, but they're afraid, they're concerned, they've heard stories of people who got burned and it was a huge disaster or something. Can you talk to me about who's a good fit for long distance transport? When should you go by ground? When should you go by air?
Most of my clientele, obviously for the majority of us, unless you specialize, they are seniors. So I would definitely, you want to make sure that anybody that you are going to do long distance with has been cleared by their physician, so that you know that you're not going to have any medical conditions that will arise during your transport. So, in speaking with the family, if they're in a facility, you want to speak directly to the facility, to their nurse, to make sure that they don't have any conditions that may warrant them not going ground. So I would definitely say you want to get a medical overview of that person. Also, someone with significant cognitive decline, people who are showing signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, they may not be best for probably anything longer than 8 to 10 hours. I don't know that ground would be best for them. A lot of times they have a condition that shows up in the afternoon. It's called sundowning, where they just acutely and abruptly become confused. They don't recognize you, they don't recognize their surroundings. So it is very important to kind of get them to where they're going before that happens. So you want to check and make sure that if they have a history of that, probably ground might not be the best way to travel.
Great. And I realize we're getting into all the challenges of it, which is going to be a lot of this podcast. But just for a second, could you tell us sort of what's the appeal of long distance? Why is it worth it to get into this line of work?
I would rather do long distance any day, than a bunch of short trips. We all know that things just never go on time. So especially as it relates to hospital discharges, you show up, they tell you to be there, put a lot of pressure on you to be there and not be late, and then you get there, the patient still got an IV running, they're not dressed, they're missing a prescription, the doctor has not formally discharged them. So it takes up a lot of our time, and that just snowballs, and then, yes, you're charging the hospital wait time, but you also, want to stay on good terms with the hospital. So you don't want to come across as though you're always nickel and diming them. So because they do provide adequate amounts of business for some providers. So, if you're doing one, or two long distance transports per day, it's just smoother, and you're really more in control, and it's more lucrative.
Yeah, can't beat that. So, Jeanine, you're a nurse. Talk to us about, the circumstances where you need a nurse on board for these long distance transports versus when you might not.
Well, I would say that if you are going to take people with Alzheimer's and dementia, if you have a nurse on board, that would certainly be, it would be better for you and for the client. Having a nurse on board that transport, a nurse can administer medications. So with that being said, a lot of times I ask the facility when I'm picking that patient up, or previous to me picking that patient up, I ask them to give a one-time dose. I've already spoken to the facility about it. I've already spoken to the family about it. Everybody is in agreement. So they'll get a one-time dose of an anti-anxiety medication, and sometimes it's just something as simple as melatonin that will just keep them nice and calm and on an even keel. However, if somebody has full-on dementia and or Alzheimer's, and as that sun starts going down, you're going to see changes in behavior. Well, if you have a nurse on board, the nurse can administer the medications according to the orders that the physician has given. So that's definitely the only way to go if you're going to be taking someone longer than maybe 4 or 5 hours. You definitely want to look at having a nurse on that transport.
Yeah, because there's an idea like, oh well, can my driver just do all of that? But like obviously they can't administer medication, and there's probably like other aspects where even like a caregiver or something would be a value add.
Well, yes, because first of all, you need to know how to read the medical label on the prescription. So you need to understand, as clinicians, we don't always speak the same English that everybody else speaks. So you need to be able to understand that. You need to understand, what PRN means. It means as needed. So a standard layperson would not understand that. So sometimes people can have medications that are scheduled and still PRN or as needed. So you could actually give both doses. Some people, most lay people would not understand how to do that. So when you also, it takes a lot of finessing with people who have cognitive decline and or full-on dementia. You don't ever want to tell a lie, but sometimes you have to be creative with how you present things, because there'll be resistance. And once someone is full-on in an agitated state, they're not taking medications from anybody. So you definitely just have to let them cool down, calm down, and then you can try to approach them again. But everything is with approach, and that's for all of us. We all respond to approach. So if you're in this industry, period, whether you're doing long distance or short, with your clientele, it's all about your approach and your driver's approach that really can determine how that transport is going to go.
Mm. So talk to me, in addition to having the right people on board, you need the right supplies on board. What are things that, obviously they need medication if they need medication, but what are things that you might want on board that you might not think about the first time you're trying to do a long distance?
Well, you would definitely need gloves. That's something that you absolutely would need. And if this person is not continent, then with that being said, you're going to need extra undergarments. So that's something that either you can stock, or, that's why I would always arrive to the facility or their home early, so that I can make sure that I gather the supplies. A lot of times I've had the conversation with the family or with the facility. They have a bag that they put together. I always look in the bag to make sure that what I've requested is in the bag. You also want some what we call disposable chucks, or they're underpads that are disposable, or you can use the ones that are washable, but then you have to store it on your van. But you always want to have a trash receptacle and trash liners, so that if someone is incontinent if you are assisting them to change out their undergarments, you need to have something to put that in so that you can discard it. A lot of times when we take our rest stops, that's when the drivers will exit the vehicle and the clinician will administer care to that passenger. And so before we leave the gas station, we will discard all of our trash from food. You definitely want to have snacks. So one thing about snacks is you have to be you have to know what that patient's diet is. Are they low sodium? Are they puree? Are they soft mechanical? So you have to know so that you're not giving them food that they can't chew and or swallow if they have chewing and swallowing difficulties. If someone has no teeth, you're not wanting to give them popcorn or potato chips. You want Fig Newtons, something soft that is easily dissolvable in their mouths. So snacks, hand sanitizer, and things of that nature, you always want to make sure you have access to. Even on short distances, on routine transport, if you are transporting clients that are incontinent, you want to always make sure that you line your wheelchair and or your stretcher. That's just a given. I don't even mess around, because if you get it, if your devices, your equipment gets soiled, you got to take it out of service.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are long trips. How do you keep riders entertained? Is it the driver chatting with them the whole time? Are you bringing stuff for them? What do you do?
Well, yes. So, I'm always constantly in contact with my passenger. Usually if I'm the nurse, and a lot of times I do go. I go on my trips myself. It's not like somebody else all the time. A lot of times I go. So I do have an iPad, and I do have ear pods, and I also have headphones. And sometimes, I will allow them to put the headphones on while, we find something to watch. But I will ask them what they like. Also, with music on my transports, it's light country or classical. That's it. If that's all you're playing when there is a passenger on board. Always asking the client or passenger, are you comfortable? Is it too warm? Is it too cold? Making sure that they are comfortable. Is the music too loud? Would you like to listen to talk radio? These are all things that I ask and get feedback. I have my iPad. I do have cellular on my iPad so that it will always work no matter what. And I have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. I have my Xfinity cable on there. So I'll download certain things and certain movies that I would say a variety of movies. I do also use a lot of children's movies because people who have visual difficulties, they like the vibrant colors. So they appreciate that. But I do ask. And not everybody has cognition issues. Some people, it's just they've had surgery, they're not able to walk. And then of course, stretcher, if you're going more than 4 to 5 hours, stretcher really is the only way to transport. Whether they can sit in a wheelchair and walk or not, that's what's going to be most comfortable and actually what's most secure and safe.
Awesome. So how about on the family side? How are you communicating with the families? Do they want to check in? Do they want live tracking? Do you send them photos? What do you do?
So once the trip has started, that's where my relationship with Duet comes in. We have the apps on our telephones, and so we are communicating with my live agents that I use, is the service that I use with Duet. So my live agents are able to call and speak with the families and let the families know where we are in the trip, how their loved one is doing, what time they can expect us. Sometimes during a break, I can let them know if they would like to call at that time and speak to their loved one. If the passenger has a cell phone, they could always be in touch with their family themselves. However, a lot of times people are not. They don't have the fortitude or have cell phones because they don't know how to work them. So with that being said, the family can call me at that time, and I can let them speak with their loved one, or I will send them pictures during the transport to let them know how everything is going.
Yeah. That's really nice. And yeah, like one of the things we had in mind when we were building like the live tracking links in Duet is like you can share this with the family, and then whether it's a 20-minute trip or a 10-hour trip or overnight trip, the family can sort of open up the link without having to download anything and say like, oh, my loved one is over here, now they're over here, like, oh, they're going to be here in half an hour, I should make sure I'm ready
Right.
at home to receive them when they get there,
Right.
etc.
Or they'll see, oh, they're actually early. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
Nothing worse than like showing up and like you're waiting for the family member to get home to pick up grandma.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the patient. Let's talk about like the operational side a little bit. What vehicles are appropriate for long distance?
Well, I am a fan of larger vehicles. So what I use is I use the standard operating vehicle that most dispatch companies use, and that is the Ford Transit. For some who have the ProMasters, the Rams, those are fine too. Those have a lot of space to move around. The Toyota or the minivans, whichever brand it is, they might work well for if it's something less than 6 hours. But longer than that, you really need to, clients really need to stretch out and be comfortable. You're not resting well if you are trying to nap in a wheelchair. The minivans are very close quarters. You don't really get a lot of room. And with someone that's going a long distance, you need adequate room for luggage and some of the other belongings that they may be bringing. If this patient is wheelchair bound, then they're on my stretcher, but I also need to accommodate their wheelchair as well. So for me, I feel like the larger Ford and or the Ram vans are adequate for long distance travel. You just really need to move around. Also have your own, be able to have your own room for your own equipment and things that you may need. We always have auxiliary power on our vans. I do hospice transports as well. So, if they are going by oxygen, whether it's a cylinder or whether it's a electric portable or whether it's a concentrator, we're able to provide power.
And that's interesting. You talked about sort of putting the wheelchair patient into the stretcher or gurney. Is there a certain after this number of hours, regardless of whether they can sit in a wheelchair or not, I'm going to plan to put them in the stretcher instead so they're more comfortable?
I think it's more comfortable, but it's also safer. I mean, the stretcher's not going anywhere. Yes, the tie downs are strong, but if you're going to ask me, I'm going to go stretcher every time because it's not going anywhere. If you have the correct locking mechanisms, the stretcher is absolutely the safer way to travel.
Yeah, you don't want them sort of struggling to hold themselves upright for 6 hours or something. I mean, you'll have breaks and stuff, but
People fall out of wheelchairs all the time.
yeah, it's not.
So, for one, you do have to make sure that they have their seatbelt on and, that they're properly tied down. However, if you're not paying attention and they slide, real quietly, unclick that belt, because they're tired and they can't get in the position that's more comfortable to them, then, you're just not going to have that issue with the stretcher.
Got it. All right. How about drivers? Do you typically just have one driver for a particular trip, or do you have a 2-driver crew and they rotate?
It varies. So if you are going by wheelchair, I can do one driver. But for me, my operation, if there is a stretcher involved, it's 2 people, whether it's 5 minutes down the street or 15 hours down the road. So for stretcher, and I'm telling you that we would go stretcher for anything over 5 or 6 hours. So with that being said, it's going to be 2 drivers.
Okay.
And so for a long distance trip, we typically would rotate every 5 or 6 hours so that the non-driving, would be the attendant at that time, could rest.
That's good. And how about overnight stays if it's a really long multi-day trip? Like how do you think about that? How do you handle that? Are there challenges sometimes with certain types of properties?
Well, what I can say is what we do is we rotate every 5 hours. So our longest trip
Oh,
is
so are
about,
you like driving through the night and rotating?
yes.
Okay. Mm.
Yes. A lot of that is dependent on the passenger.
Uh-huh.
So if the passenger, depending on what they're receiving, if they're going to someone's home, then it doesn't make a big deal. But if they're going to a facility, sometimes facilities say, hey, they have to be here by this time. So if you have to get them there by that targeted time, then you have to keep driving.
Mhm.
So in order to make the time or even be early, we just rotate our driver every 5 to 6 hours and we drive through the night.
Mm. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Probably easier for the patient than trying to load, unload, move luggage in and out of the hotel, etc.
Yeah, whenever possible. I mean, if you have to spend the night, then obviously it's what you have to do. But mostly we time is time is time is money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not there to vacation and to leisure. So we try to get our patients where our passengers where they need to be.
Mhm. So another topic I've heard, from people who are new to long distance is sort of how does it work when you're crossing state lines? Like, maybe there are different state regulations at play. Like, what do you need to know about, you know, state regulations in order to start doing long distance?
Well, basically, what we do, the only thing I can tell you is for us, as far as insurance goes, we make sure that we reach out to our insurance provider to let them know where we are and or what we're doing and when we're going, and we also let them know when we return. So we've had no issues with that. NEMT right now is not regulated, so there is no regulations that you have to register with in any state. So we know that that's probably coming, but that's just not where we are right now. The only thing I can tell you is that as we're driving, and that's why I have an iPad that we are not using for navigation that has cellular on it. In the event that there was an emergency, a medical emergency, then I can easily, pull up the closest medical facility so that either myself or the passenger or my staff could get appropriate care if that was warranted.
Mhm. And then you mentioned like you call your insurance or you message them to let them know you're doing the trip and when you get back. Um, when you first talked to them, hey, I'm going to start doing these long distance trips. Did they give you any grief? Did they raise your rates? Like, walk me through that conversation.
No, because of course when you start business, one of the first questions when you get your insurance policy, one of the first questions they ask you is, what's your service area? What's the radius of where you intend to operate? So basically, when you are calling them, you're letting them know that you are going to be, outside of that radius, and they're asking, where are you going? Who's going to be, with you, making sure that is everybody that is on your all of your staff is covered on your policy. That those are the people that are going to be in the vehicle.
Mm. All right, and let's get to the juicy stuff. How do we price these long distance trips? Like, how do you think about like what makes something a $20,000 trip versus a $5,000 trip?
Well, a lot of that is determined on the mileage. It is a big part of that, I would have to say, is the mileage. The other thing is the passenger, So I can answer that question just baseline is going to be the mileage and the mode of transport. For me, anything over 5 or 6 hours, as I've already stated, is going to be stretcher. So I'm charging the stretcher rate. So it's going to be the stretcher load fee, and then of course the mileage, and the mileage is going to be to and the deadhead back to base. So it's definitely going to be round trip. In addition, you're charging for any meals. If you do have need to have a hotel stay, you're including that in there as well. Any tolls that you may have to go through, you're certainly going to want to include that. And that's all. These are all the things that you'll need to do research on. When you pick your route, you need to definitely look at which route is the best route, because there's obviously more than one route. So do you want the more direct route, or do you want the route that is maybe a little longer, but maybe it's not mountainous? So you definitely want to be fair to the client as well. You don't want to just go the longest route, because of it's going to cost more. Because just like you can look up the routes, they can too. So if you're going to take a route that costs more, you be prepared to explain why you're doing that to the client. I don't like to be on the side of mountains. So if I have to go on the side another way where I'm not looking down, then I might have to take some of the patient's medication.
Yeah.
So yes, that is all included in your price. And like I said, I would not drive anybody wheelchair longer than 5 or 6 hours. They will absolutely not be comfortable. A lot of times we are dealing with people who are very mature in age. You might be putting them in a position to have a blood clot if they're sitting in a fixed position for a long period of time. So, wheelchair long distance is not the best way to go. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. And, you talked about sort of how you price the trips. Do people just pay it all up front? Do you sort of do half up front, half later? How do you manage the payment side of it?
I've not really had any issues with that. I've done both. A lot of times when we've given them the quoted price, they have paid right then. Sometimes if it depends on how much time that we're talking. If they're talking 2 or 3 days, when I give you the rate, that be ready to make the payment. If they're talking a week or so out, then I will require a deposit just to make sure that they're serious, because there's a lot of work that goes on to prepare for this trip.
Right.
So I do require a deposit, and then either 24 to 48 hours prior to departure, we settle up with the remaining balance.
Cool. Okay, so they're fully paid before any actual transport happens.
Absolutely. Even local, we don't drive if we do make exceptions for people that pay cash, but at that point in time, otherwise we don't move. Our wheels don't move if our trips have not been paid in full.
And how about if you have those scenarios, like there's bad weather, you have to stay in a hotel at night or something. If I understand you right, you do pass those costs along. You don't want to eat those yourself. How do you communicate that? Do you warn them up ahead, incidental costs will get billed to you?
That is correct.
How does that work?
Yes, that's a conversation. So when I'm giving them the quote, that's the conversation that we had. This quote is based on, X, Y, Z. However, there are other incidentals, so be prepared that if we do, run into unforeseen costs, those costs will be passed on to you. And, I've not had any family members that have given us any pushback whatsoever.
Cool. And then, are there any costs that a new provider might not think about that are gonna affect your long distance transport? Like you mentioned, tolls, obviously, meals, potential lodgings. What else should people be thinking about?
Well, yes. There's also there was a trip where the headlight went out, so we were down to one headlight. So we just Googled the closest auto shop, and we bought it and popped it in and got right back on the road and kept going. So you do have to be prepared. You do have to have a method of payment with you in case things like that happen. And if you're not going on the trip yourself, you need to make sure that your staff is able to pivot and handle something like that. Something that we would consider simple. My dad walked me around my first car to make sure that I had a full understanding. I definitely know how to change a light bulb. Or I used to before they got their new high-tech ones, but yes.
Nice. So talk to me about who's paying for these trips. Like, is it always private pay out of pocket, or are there ever cases where you have like the facility is paying for the transport, or like private health care, like United Health, whatever is paying for it, or even Medicaid is paying for it?
I am not a Medicaid provider, but what I can say, I don't want to speak out of school, but Medicaid does have a general ledger that, if they want something done, they could pay you directly as a provider. So if other Medicaid waiver transport companies turned it down or refused to do it in that service area, they could very well reach out to a non-Medicaid waiver registered NEMT company to do the transport and pay you out of their general ledger. However, most times it is private pay because families want to be closer to their loved one, or actually one of the last ones that I did was not via ground, it was via air, and he wanted to go back home to where he came from, and he had been on my mind, and I reached out to his son to say what a good time we had, because his son just swore up and down that he was going to give me a hard time, and his dad did not. He was actually quite lovely, and we had a good time, and he said that his father passed away 24 hours after I got him to his destination.
Oh, wow.
He just wanted to, he was from Connecticut, and he said he just wanted to be at home. And so that gave me peace that I got a chance to meet him, and I helped him to live out what his final wishes were.
That's really nice. I bet like the family really appreciated you.
Yes.
So when do you say no to a trip? When is it like sort of red flags, things to avoid, not something you want to deal with?
Yes. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and this is outside of me being a clinician, but the first thing that comes to mind is there is a cutoff for bariatric. If you cannot take care of someone long distance that is of extreme weight, yes, your stretcher can go up to 800 pounds, your lift, which you're not using, but even with a wheelchair, your lift can go up to 700 or 800 pounds. But, how are you going to take care of that person if you have to administer any type of personal care? You can't roll them. You don't really have enough room or the right equipment to assist them. So I can tell you right off the top, that's not something that is very specialized, and that's not something that probably is within the scope of NEMT. Another thing is people who have extreme psychiatric issues. You probably are not qualified to transport them. Even with me being a nurse, if I read your medications list and you've got 6 or 7 psychotropic medications, I am probably not the right fit for you via air or ground. People with very complicated medical needs, unless you have physicians that are aboard your transport or a primary care provider, that's not transport that you should take. Also, just to bring it down a notch, people who are stringing you along about paying you. Oh, well, I'll wait till the day before, no. And that's whether it's a facility or private pay, because I have had that happen, and they were upset with me, but, every time the days got moved and then there was no payment, and it was just a bunch of confusion between the family and the facility, and I just could not. I couldn't wait for that, so I just went ahead about my day, and I took other bookings.
Yeah, you can't like hold a full day, a full 2 days for a vehicle that the trip may not happen.
Correct.
How about you said you love long distance and you prefer it over a smattering of local trips. Talk to me about like the margin and like is the margin on long distance better, worse, equal?
Yeah, the margin is much better. I would say 40, 50, percent.
Nice.
A lot of times, if a clinician is warranted, I am the clinician on the transport. Because you know what, as an owner, I'm very active in the company, and I have 3 different companies, but I would tell you that transport is the one that I get the most enjoyment out of. And even the local trips, you drive around your city, which there's all the new developments, new places in your city that you haven't been in a long time. So, that's always nice to see the new development and new real estate. But, speaking specifically, I was on a transport to Canada, and I had never driven through Virginia. Virginia was absolutely breathtaking. It was absolutely beautiful in those mountains, and I had never driven in a tunnel. I'm a Florida girl, so I had never driven in a tunnel through the mountains, and I think we went to 2 or 3 of them, and so that was really beautiful. And so as a clinician with a long distance trip, that's the most time I get to spend in direct contact with a client and or patient. Bedside nursing is quick, in and out. What do you need? What do you want? Here you go. Here you go. Here's a spot. Here's your medicine. Bye. But I do enjoy getting to know my passengers, and so for me, it's rewarding, and it relaxes me with out of my day to day. And then again, like I said, it is more lucrative for me. I make more on the long distance transports than I do with 7 or 8, local transports. Of course, there are some days where we're actually losing money when, people aren't ready on time,
Right.
And you have to, I'm on the phone with my live operators with Duet. Hey, this patient's not ready. And then we have to rearrange the whole schedule, okay, so you go do this one, and, then we'll send this one over here. So, you don't run into any of the logistical issues. It's pretty much straightforward, and I just thank God that I've been blessed that I've not had any issues while, I was doing long distance. Actually, I had one, and it was hospice. She was a hospice patient, and traffic was really bad, and she did not have power oxygen in her. She was down to her last tank. And so, before her tank expired, we pulled over to an Advent Health Hospital, and they let us borrow. We switched out a tank so that we can continue to take her to where she needed to go. And so then when we were done with that transport, we took their tank back to them and retrieved our tank that we had left. So with that being said, that's where you really have to think ahead, and
Yeah.
we did have to pivot.
Jane had a question about driver pay and like how you incentivize the drivers for these kind of long distance trips.
Yes, so typically my drivers make anywhere between $17 to $19 an hour. So with a long distance trip, I bonus them. So I pay them higher because, I need them to be alert. I need them, at their best. We've got this passenger, we're going a long distance. So I definitely pay them, I pay them a bonus on top of what their hourly pay is.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about like the sales and marketing side, because maybe we've convinced people it's worth getting into this business. You've gone through a lot of the pitfalls that people run into. Now, how do people get long distance transports? So my first question would be like, where are these leads coming from?
Well, I'm not the standard or the typical, because I am a nurse and I've worked in hospitals and long distance in local facilities, skilled facilities. So people know what I do, and I make sure that I ask for business everywhere that I go. I just don't necessarily assume. I tell people, hi, my name is Jeanine. I own SailorGirl Transport. We're not emergency medical transport. We do local and long distance, ground or air. So regardless of what you do, it's not the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. You have to ask people for business, even if it's your own clients that you already do business with. So if you wanted to go and start doing long distance transport, then you should go to those nursing homes that you already have contracts with, or the VA, and say, hey, you know what? We have just started a new service line. We're going to be doing long distance transport. Any of your clients or residents that you feel is appropriate, by all means, have them call us. Another thing is, when people are spending their money with me, I make sure that I spend money with them. So the same things with those assisted living and those nursing homes during CNA week, during Nurses Week. Well, yeah, you can go drop off a box of donuts, you can go and take some ice cream and show them, hey, I appreciate the business that you're giving me, but it's not a one-way street. If people feel like all you're doing is taking, they'll stop giving. So it's always about reciprocity. You need to support them, and they'll continue to support you. So, you advertise, you do podcasts, you use Duet, and, you definitely make sure that you are letting people know what you do. And joining some of your local organizations, you should join your local Chamber of Commerce, like, I have. They're excellent referral resources.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of your trips are coming from existing clients you have, that whether it's on the home care or the transport or the nursing side, or they're coming from like facilities, and you've spoken to how important it is to build that relationship over time, and show up for them, do nice things for their residents with the ice cream, the donuts, help out the staff, that kind of thing. How about for people who don't know you, but maybe I'm trying to book a ride for a family member or something, and I'm Googling. Do you like run Google Ads? Do you have anything on your website about long distance? Have you seen much traction from that relative to the facility relationships? Like, where should people focus if they are, hey, I've got this amount of time and money to get into long distance, where should I put it?
I also will say that your current clientele, word of mouth. I have gotten long distance trips from previous people that did a long distance trip with me, and they were speaking to someone, and they, oh, well, you know what, we use Jeanine with SailorGirl. So, word of mouth is still, very much prevalent, and really it's the best form of referrals. And then, yes, for a time I did do Google Ads, and yes, I do advertise on my website that I do long distance transport as well. And then, of course, I have my lovely operations crew at Duet that also knows what I do. And sometimes when people are calling them, they will make sure, to ask, do you need long distance transport, by the way? And with that being said, then they will, if the response is yes, if they were interested in that, then they will pass that call off to me.
Got it. That's helpful. So let's say I'm a new NEMT operator, just wanting to get into long distance. What's your first thing you'd tell me to do? Because we've covered a lot of ground in this talk.
Well, you can certainly purchase my ebook that is, that I made specifically for that. For me, when I first got into NEMT, I shadowed with another company here locally, and within 9 months we were in full-on COVID, so my wheels didn't move at all. So I had no choice. You always have to find new service lines and be thinking outside the box, so that you can multiply your streams of income. So with that being said, I would tell them, hey, see if you could ride along with someone else. Again, there is my ebook. I'm certainly here if you would like some one-on-one training and or coaching. I can certainly help you with that as well. But you need to be
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah,
You
tell
need
us
to
a
be
little bit
ready.
more. Like you have, if I understand it right, it's called Crossing the County Line, just recently released. You know, I mean, you've covered like a lot of stuff about long distance, but what sort of things can people look forward to in the book that maybe we didn't have time to cover in this session here?
Yes, so it's actually beyond the county line, and it's an operator's operations manual for NEMT. And you can certainly buy that book. And what it does is I put a lot of templates in there to help you, to guide you through the process. I'll also have some workshops so that if you are really interested, we can have some workshops and help you to work through it. And anytime that you've done a trip, I would say 5 hours. If you just think about multiplying that by 2 or 3, then that's kind of what it's going to be like. Because a 5 hour trip, at the end of that 5 or 6 hours, you need to gas up. Those are the types of things you need to gas up. You may need something to drink. You may need to use the restroom. You may need to get something to eat. So all of those things so that you are nice and focused on your driving. So that's basically what it's like doing long distance. You just want to make sure that you are safe as possible and that your passenger is safe as possible. And you just want to arrive on time. You don't need to be on the inside lane, driving, 95 miles an hour. When you have someone on your van that's loaded, you need to be driving as safe as possible. If somebody is riding you, then pull over to the next lane and let them go around you. It's okay. We're not in competition. We're all stressed right now. It's a lot going on. We're all stressed. Yeah. But, the thing is to arrive alive and to be safe.
Got it. And so I've posted the link to your ebook in the chat so people can check it out there. If someone wants to get in touch with you and just have a quick one-on-one, couple questions for you about long distance, or maybe they're interested in collaborating. Like I know you do the ground, air, ground, and sometimes you need like a partner on the other end of the trip. How can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, and if I just may speak a moment about the collaboration, I am huge into collaboration. There is no man that's an island unto themselves. I'm located in Florida. We have hurricanes. There are times where I have collaborated with other companies to do disaster evacuations. There are times where, something has gone astray and I have to give a transport away. So I give it to other companies that I work with that would do the same for me. So, you're not into it by yourself. We are a whole community, a whole NEMT community. So it's very important to know that we are stronger together than we are individually. If we all work together, we wouldn't have these issues of trying to lowball or undercut someone else's fares to get a contract. We all lose when people do that because then the fares are going down and these facilities feel as though we can operate at those rates. And, I don't know about you all, but in Florida with the weather we've had, our rates are skyrocketed. So, I think that we definitely need to stick together. You need to have 2 or 3 other companies that, you can collaborate and work with. And, we all can set the standard for NEMT and be around longer and keep the government out of our business.
Yep.
And so if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me directly at Jeanine, JEANIE, at SailorGirlHomeCareServices.com.
Great. And if you ever have any trouble getting to Jeanine, just reach out to me on any channel and I can connect you.
They definitely know how to get in touch with me. If I may, I was definitely an owner-operator, and I was driving a lot. I'm trying to take calls. I'm just trying to handle dispatching facilities, hospitals. Everyone is calling. I'm working 6, 7 days a week, going to bed, getting up, and because this was during COVID, so there worked. I was pretty much almost 24 hours. With that being said, I found Duet, and Duet has really been life-saving for me because, again, I do own more than one business. However, even if I just had only transport, the compliments that I get, I spoke to your live operator. They were so courteous, so professional. The compliments that I get, I'm able to sleep at night. They handle all my operations for me. The only time that I get phone calls from Duet is a referral and or to quote a long distance trip. So I feel as though their software competes with anyone else or above, and their price is fair.
Thanks, Jeanine. Yeah, a lot of people maybe are familiar with our software, but not like we do have a remote dispatching service, which you've used for a fair amount of time now, where we can have highly trained Duet people sort of take calls for you, do the schedule, talk to riders and everything, and basically sort of help you run your business for you. So, I mean, because I think the highest leverage thing most operators can do is like go do the business development side, build the relationships with the facilities, manage the drivers, make sure the stuff on the ground, is working properly. And then our goal is we never want you to be wasting your time on tweaking stuff in the software. Either it's very easy for you to do it yourself in the software, or somebody on the Duet end can do it for you.
Well, and it also allows the drivers to concentrate on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Rather than taking phone calls and, being distracted, because, that costs all of us more money. So if you have an operator that's handling that for you, hands-free, they just notify Duet through the app, hey, we're running a little behind. It took this patient a little bit longer to get ready when we arrived. So Duet is already calling the doctor's office, letting them know, hey, they're running 5 minutes to 7 minutes behind, they are en route, or letting the family member know they're en route. So it just gives everybody peace of mind.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Jeanine, and really appreciate you coming on. If anyone wants to learn more about Jeanine, SailorGirl in Florida, sort of her NEMT company, you can reach out to her on the email she shared. Reach out to me and I'll connect you. Check out her ebook. And Jeanine, we'll have to have you on sometime to talk about the home care NEMT overlap at some point too.
Yes, because all of you NEMTs companies, you need to be friends with a home health company that has nurses available. You definitely need to have them in your sphere of influence.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Really appreciate you coming. And
Yep.
This recording will be up on YouTube in the near future.
Yep. Have a great day.